Hey there, New Day Blessings. I'm Denise Ann Sumbry, your host, and this is the Maven Podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to my first guest. She is a meditation teacher, IAYT, certified yoga therapist, and Reiki master. She is founder of Rooted Blossoms, LLC, a yoga therapy practice specializing in restorative rest, meditation, breathwork, movement, and sacred teachings. She is a native of Cleveland and has over 17 years of public service, currently serving as the Executive Commissioner at the City of Cleveland Department of Public Utilities. She holds degrees from Cuyahoga Community College, Cleveland State University, and Baldwin Wallace University. She is an active member of the National Forum of Black Public Administrators. She holds several certifications, including ones from the International Association of Yoga Therapists and Yoga Alliance. She serves on the Board of Awakening, Yoga Spaces, and the Certification Committee of the International Association of Yoga Therapists. She is the author of Ground, Your Complete Guide to Understanding Meditations for Grounding. She is a ministry partner of South Euclid United Church of Christ. She is a lover of art, books, and music, and adores being with her family and friends. She is a teacher, a speaker, podcast host, and who I get to call my dear friend, confidant, and sister, the Danielle Graham. Welcome to the Maven Podcast.
Sister.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling amazing. And I have to stop and say, I am so happy for you. I am thrilled to be part of this. So thank you. I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. And we were talking before the show started, and I'm like, sister, you have been part of a variety of new beginnings for me. My prior company, Positive Life Haven, and then just a variety of life transitions that are considered new beginnings. And I just want you to know that I cherish that. And I'm really, really appreciative of your unconditional and ongoing love and support. You know, even when I know you like, this girl's crazy. What's happening now? What's next? You know,
All good. I love it. And I feel the same way. So thank you. But I'm excited about this new season for you.
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you. And, you know, I have had the pleasure to know you on a very personal level. And the level of wisdom that you hold, you were one of the first people to drop in my spirit as it relates to who I would want to come and share that wisdom. Not only just the ongoing frequency exchange in, sharing, but also allowing that wisdom to be shared with others in just a different capacity. And so tell us a little bit more about Rooted Blossoms.
Rooted Blossoms, it is my life's calling. It was born out of my own journey, my own relationship with rest and transition and just lifing, right? And so what it has grown to be, it's evolved, right? And so the idea is I wanted to create a space where it brings to mind, I don't know if if you've seen the color purple, and Celie is taking care of Suge, right, in the bathtub.
Yes.
And she's humming to her and just
stroking her hair.
Yeah, stroking her hair, and this idea of care. And for me, that's what Rooted Blossoms is, a container to provide care, all centered around restorative rest, restorative care, and really honing in on rest as it needs to be for you, ritual as it needs to be for you, and encouragement as it needs to be for you. So that's what Rooted Blossoms is. And we use breath work, meditation, sacred teachings, and movement along with rest to be able to provide that care.
I love that. And you consider yourself a rest advocate. And there's this movement that you're very passionate about as it relates to rest advocacy. Can you share a little bit more about what that means? How do you define it for yourself and for others?
So it looks very different for us. Most of us are householders. So we have to look at rest not in just the physical way or in sleep, but in a lot of different areas of our lives. But in and of itself, it's a sense of surrender and just being, right? Just simply being, not doing at all whatsoever. And so there's different areas of rest. Most of us are familiar with physical rest as it relates to sleep or even some type of movement, of yoga or dance or what have you, this physical type of rest. But there's other types of rest. There is what we call sensory rest, where we detach from all of the technology, the distractions or what have you. There is creative rest, where we rest in our creative expression or experience, right? I think the hardest thing is emotional rest, of putting up those boundaries, right? Yeah. There's social rest in the sense of being in community. There's mental rest. So there's different types of rest, and we actually intuitively do it in our lives, but we suppress it. We ignore it. And so one of the things that I like to do is to just really look at your natural rhythm of life and see how we can amplify those, I call those micro moments, and to expand upon those. And then also to discover, what does rest look like for you, right? What does rest look like for you?
So you mentioned the creative rest.
Yes.
How does one decipher when they're in a state of creativity? How do they decipher that they're actually in a state of rest? How do they make that connection?
I think it takes time in terms of where it transcends that I'm doing it. But how one can get lost if you talk to someone that is in the creative process or in a creative experience, they get lost in it. That's the sense of resting. That's the sense of being. You get lost in a song and you're just singing or what have you, or experiencing the song, you're feeling the song or whatever. That's a form of rest. If you are expressing, whether it be through art, whether it be through writing or what have you, you can look up and you're like, where did the time go? That's a sense of rest. That's a sense of rest. That's a sense of being in it, where you lose, or you just kind of remove yourself of what it is, that limitation of time and things like that. You get lost in just being and just flowing.
I love that. That really, really helps to click, because my language that I use when I'm in a deep creative space and then I come out of it, you're right. Like the sense of time, there is no sense of time. And I like to say, man, I was just in a vortex. But I never equated that to that's an element of rest. But it makes sense, because when I come out of that creative space, it's not like I'm tired or exhausted, or I'm actually a bit more energized and reactivated or ignited in a sense too. So that is huge.
And people can do that with gardening. They can do that in terms of walking. They can do that in terms of being in the kitchen and cooking. And you just get lost in time because you're so into it or what have you. Our grandmothers used to do this when they were in the kitchen or whatever, and they'd be singing and humming and things like that, or playing cards. That's social rest, being in community, playing cards, being in community with your girlfriends, playing the music or what have you, the laughter. That's a sense of rest. So it's in what we do. It's just that we think rest is a certain way. Right.
More of that physical.
Exactly.
I think the beauty in this is just bringing awareness to the different elements of rest and beginning for others to really begin to connect to those different aspects. Because even the terminology of being in social rest, that, like, I never thought about that.
Yes.
And then once again, when I'm out with my friends and we're dancing or we're just at home kicking back, it's a relaxed state. It's fun. And again, walk away from there just feeling revitalized.
Very therapeutic, very healing.
Can you speak more on emotional rest?
I think of all of the types of rest that I think that each realm of rest gets us to that point. Emotional rest really is centered around establishing boundaries for yourself, right? And with yourself. There's a poem that I always like to reference. One of my absolute favorite poet is Nahara Waid. And she has this poem where it says, there's you and you. This is relationship. This is the most important relationship. And she says this, and that's probably one of the things in terms of emotional rest, of being able to have a relationship with yourself, that self-discovery and understanding what it is that you need and being able to advocate what you need. And so resting in that emotional rest is being able to rest in just that, in what you need, right? And being able to advocate for that and to being able to create a life centered around that. And that's not always easy. I think that we are working towards that, and actually not even working, being in that, right? Being in that. And so I think out of all of the types of rest, that's probably the one that that's a lifetime. Because it's constant and we evolve and our boundaries change.
So you've been in the trenches with me in a variety of emotional work. Just to help me correlate this just a little bit deeper, from what you've witnessed in my journey, when have you witnessed me experience emotional rest? You have to give detail, but I'm just like the example. Like when have I experienced them? When have I emotionally rested?
So, in my opinion, I think that you have always had areas where you've emotionally rested, right? I think that it's amplified more as you've gone through your transitions. I think of the transition where with your marriage, right? I think that was a huge sense of rest for you. While it was emotional, right? It was very emotional. At the very basis of it, you rested in it. You sat with it, you rested in it, and you were like, you just took a breath.
That makes
your life breath, right? And like, this is what it is.
Yeah. That's good.
And you make space for all of the emotion, right? You communicated it, right? You communicated it with your spouse.
Yes.
There was communication there.
Yes.
And I think you both rested in it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And now that you are somewhat on the other side in a different way, because I think that we all go through things and we always say when we get on the other side, I just think that they're different phases of being on the other side, if you will.
For
right?
Sure. For sure.
There's still another layer.
There is.
There's always another layer to kind of move in and through.
When you think you're on the other side, it's like, oh,
exactly.
No, there's another threshold.
Exactly. And that's part of the rest of understanding that this is what it is. I can't control it. It's a sense of surrender. It's a sense of being and being able to breathe. What I always say, rest in the being, being able to breathe, being able to know what's in control, what you can't control, and giving it over, and being able to self-advocate for yourself, self-acknowledge, right? And self-commit to yourself, even in the midst of all of that. So that's what I would say.
That's beautiful. I think that's very, very helpful, just tying in like a real life example with that. Because the emotional world is very challenging for most, right? Like even with my journey, just really tapping into all the different emotions and feelings on the spectrum, pleasant and unpleasant, right? But that, and like taking that journey was even very new, and it just opened up just because we are in a society that glorifies busyness. And for some, even myself in the past, can experience some guilt and shame as it relates to resting or not being quote unquote productive. How do you help one to like reframe their mindset as it relates to that, like not feeling guilty or having feeling some kind of way for not being productive?
Well, I think you have to make space for it. I like to let people know that that's by design. It's been by design. Distraction, and that's what it is. Busyness is a distraction. If we were to collectively understand that and be able to address some of these structured systems like capitalism or what have you, because at the basis of it, that's what it is, right? This sense of distraction, this sense of taking away from what we have always known for centuries of what it is to truly see each other, to hear each other, to value each other, to spend time in community, to really care for each other. But we are in a world where it keeps us away, right? The time of the porches, we don't have porches anymore, right? The highway, that was strategic. We all used to live together or what have you. So I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the point is that I think that, it starts in small ways. And I like to start with those that would want to work with me in terms of that. And even in my offerings, this idea of we start small. We start small, of taking maybe 2 minutes of just getting still, getting quiet, and being okay with that. It is a relationship with rest. So we are going to have different types of feelings or what have you, but I think that it's gradual. But at the end of the day, know that you are worth your own attention.
I love that quote.
You are worth your own attention.
Yes.
You're more than enough. You are worth your own attention. And I have to keep saying that. You are worth your own attention. And I think that, as you start to say that to yourself and you start to incorporate that in your life in different ways, and we'll work to be able to discover how you can do that.
Because it's different for everyone.
It looks very different. We are householders. Some of us are parents, whether we be pet parents, plant parents, kid parents. We're a relationship. We are taking care of our parents. We have a lot going on, right? There's a lot of demands on our time. So yeah, it looks very different for us. It's not necessarily a retreat. It's not necessarily of being able to go away.
Yeah.
We may not have that option.
Like the other piece I want to really talk about too, just even if it's briefly. Well, first of all, let me just offer this recent reframe as it relates to rest that one of my close sister friends like got in me with that. So I had told her, I was like, you know what, I've rotted in bed all day today, right? So, but that was just my way of just like, I was in bed and I didn't feel any kind of way about it. Like I was cool. But she was like, you didn't rot. She was like, you rooted.
Yes.
You rooted in bed. And I was just like, thank you. Thank you for correcting me, because we also have to watch our language and the words that we use as it relates to how we tend to ourselves.
And that is so powerful. And that, so when and that is so spot on. We have to change our language. So it's a cycle, right? It's cyclical, right? And so what we tell ourselves and what we tell others about rest or what have you, and this misconception of what rest is, and this idea of feeling guilty because we're rest, we have to be very mindful of that. Because in and of itself, that plants the seed in the sense of not being worthy of rest, or this idea, I rest when I die. Why?
And that's really,
and so we have to really, really be mindful of that. And I always ask my clients when we begin is who showed you what it was like to rest? And then what will be your legacy as it relates to rest? What will be your legacy as it relates to rest?
I love that. And I feel as it relates to specifically Black and brown people, that rest is very much a harder concept to understand and integrate. So when you talk about like it's a cycle, you want to speak more about that as it relates to Black and brown people?
So for Black and brown folk, rest has not been accessible for many reasons. A lot of it is based on the fact that, slavery, right? For 400 years. For 400 years.
Plus.
Right. Labor was based on, the building of this country was based upon the labor of Black and brown folk. The blood of Black and brown folk. So this idea of rest, what?
Here we are in 2024.
Still, and we're still dealing with the after effects of that chronic disease, right? This sense of mental and physical strain.
And mental conditioning.
Yes.
That's very cellular.
Yes. So it is important, but I have hope. We cannot lose our hope as what it can look like and what we're teaching our children. I think that there is a movement. There is a movement that is getting louder and louder, and our other human sisters and brothers, they're catching on as it relates to that. But I think that doing this work, whether it be, and one of my sister friends, she says this, that the community is her yoga studio, right? So being out in the community, looking at it very differently, and taking those pauses, having these conversations, right? Redefining what rest is. It's not just this. I think we also have to take this to the workplace. We have to take this to the schools. Remember in schools, we used to be able to take naps?
Yes.
Right. So I think we need to revisit that, right? That's the start of the conversation. So I think with Black and brown folk, we have to be even more intentional in terms of creating this boundary that we are going to tend to ourselves. Yes. We are going to care for ourselves. And you see that more and more, but there's more work to be done. And we have to make it accessible. It can't be so high in the sky that it's not reachable. It has to be accessible. It has to be accessible to the caretaker. It has to be accessible to the partner. It has to be accessible to those in the church. It has to be accessible to the employee. It has to be accessible.
Well, one of the things that I know, and at the end of the day, this work, it always starts with self. So, you know, one of the intentions with why we're here today is to activate one's awareness around and what's your own relationship with rest. And I know for me, I have learned in my journey to establish rest even at the start of my day. Like a morning ritual is non-negotiable. And we were talking earlier how like the benefit of a slow morning. And even when you mentioned social rest, so when I wake up in the morning, there's no touching my phone the first 30 minutes to an hour. That first 30 minutes to the hour is for me. And I'm easing into my day, and I have the ritual of lighting my incense in the morning and turning on some binary beats, hertz frequency based off of the intention that I'm setting for the day. Can you share a little bit more about your morning ritual?
Ooh. So my morning ritual is just complete silence. So usually I am in bed probably about 10:30. I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning. Right. I am an early riser. And usually, much like you, I do not have my phone in my room. I don't have anything in there. And so I usually get up and I must admit, I got to have my chai tea latte.
The coffee for me, the ritual around making my coffee.
The chai tea latte. And so usually either I go outside when it's warmer, or I open up a window and I just hear the sounds. And that's the first 10 to 15 minutes. Just the
communing with nature. And
that's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So it can be an urban area. I don't care what it is. Just the sound, the early morning sounds.
It does have a totally different vibe.
It has a totally different vibe.
And you know what the other thing my morning ritual consists of, which it hasn't always been the case, but this has been fairly new for me, is fully making my bed. And it's something about throughout my day when I'm walking past my bedroom, and the bedroom is so neat and organized, and the bed is made. But then I've also have fallen in love with the ritual of, you know how when you go to a all-inclusive resort and they have like the turn down service?
Oh, yes.
I was like, oh my God, I actually like get ahead of the game. Like I'm preparing my own turn down service. Right. So there's even this beautifulness in me connecting when I'm pulling my sheet and blanket back.
Yes.
And I am essentially telling my body, my emotional body, my mental body, my physical body, that it's time for rest.
Yes, for sure.
Like the physical rest.
For sure. And I think that that's so important. And what I want to also say is not only is the morning ritual important, the evening ritual
that wind down, baby.
And even if I could say the afternoon ritual, but really the evening ritual is also equally as important. This idea when at least 10 to 15 minutes, if you could do 30 minutes of just complete silence, or whatever it is that allows you to kind of like settle your nervous system, right?
For me, I tend to journal more in the evening and night.
Yes.
Yeah. And reading in the morning for me, like literature, I tend to do that in the morning, but in the evening, I don't know. There's just something about like journaling. And
That's that creative rest. But this idea of really just allowing yourself to, I always like to say, catch yourself in order to catch up with yourself. So we
hold on. Repeat that again. Bars.
Catch yourself in order to catch up with yourself.
You need to put that on. Tweet, baby. And make you another shirt with that one, honey. I love that.
Yeah. Catch yourself in order to catch up with yourself.
You know, Danielle, you are one of the first person, like I learned this from you, and it is Yoga Nidra. Mm-hmm. And I consider Yoga Nidra as, well, I know it's considered restorative yoga.
It is a restorative form.
It's a restorative form.
Okay. Yeah, it's a restorative form.
I feel like my first introduction to what really rest was through you teaching me Yoga Nidra. Can you share a little bit more about that practice?
So shout out to my teacher, Tracy Stanley, who is the bomb.com. Yes. As it relates to Yoga Nidra. It is many things. So most people encounter it as a technique. It is also considered the form of it is considered a goddess, but it is a practice. And so Yoga Nidra is a form of rest, if you will, and through verbal cues or what have you, and setting the tone, right? It is usually done lying down, although there are different variations and it's very accessible. You can do it sitting up or what have you. But the idea is that it takes you into a deep state of rest, to where there's a sense of really bringing you all the way down. Yeah. Bringing you all the way down. Now, you have to be mindful, because doing that can cause for a lot of things to come up, right? And so you definitely want to be with someone that can hold a safe container for you. So I do have to say that, right? So things may come up, but it's a deep state that allows you to go into a deep state of consciousness. So it's a lull of where you are really getting in touch with the soul, the heart center, particularly as you practice. You may not experience that like the first time, but as you get into the practice,
you become more comfortable in
exactly.
It, and your level of surrender deepens.
That's what it is. So this idea of really, what I say, communing with yourself, really communing with yourself. And like I said before, it's very important, I can't stress this, that you have a safe container, because there are things that can come up from, just clarity to also, trauma that's been suppressed. And things that you're having to face or what have you. So you just have to be mindful of that. But it is a wonderful, wonderful practice. I don't like to start people with it. I like to ease them into it. So body scans, deep breathing, things like that. There's ways in which you ease people into it, but I absolutely love it. I practice it on a regular myself. And then also I love being able to serve and to facilitate that for people.
It's a beautiful practice. If you are someone who is unfamiliar with, or not unfamiliar, but maybe you just haven't connected with your breath, or just the different sensory, like you said, the sensory sensations in your body, Yoga Nidra is a beautiful practice. And you're right, you can utilize it, and I'm speaking from my own experience and how I've used it in my healing journey, to help heal. And I feel for myself, Yoga Nidra has been one of those things that I've pulled out of my satchel when I am in deep emotional work. Yes. And it helps me process.
Yes.
And if I'm experiencing a range of emotions, whether it's anger or I would have to say probably anger is the biggest one, but also heartache or heartbreak.
Yes.
Yoga Nidra has been one of my go-tos for that type
and that's and I love that you said your satchel. It is a tool.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
It is definitely a tool to be able to go and to the emotional portion of it is that we're so used to staying at one level of the reactiveness, but being able to understand why, what is going on that is causing me to feel this way? What is going on that is causing me to move in this way? Why do I continue to be able to, why am I at this point, right? And so Yoga Nidra is one of those tools that allows you to be able to get quiet, to get still.
And feel.
And to feel. And to be able to, again, as you continue to practice, to really go deeper and to understand you. To really understand you and to sit with you, the authentic you.
Yes. And all the uncomfortableness.
All of that.
Yeah.
All of that. Yeah, all of that.
And speaking, this is a great transition. You are a yoga therapist. What is yoga therapy? Like, what is yoga therapy? How does it differ from traditional yoga?
Yeah.
Can you share more about that?
So I want to say this, shout out to all the yoga teachers. I started as a yoga teacher. Yoga in and of itself, whether you want to say yoga, teacher, yoga therapy, is very therapeutic. It is therapeutic. It is life-changing, right? So I do want to say that. But there are some things that are different between yoga and yoga therapy. The training in and of itself. Traditionally, a yoga teacher is one that is taught over 200, 300 hours. And usually that's between 5 to 10 months. Whereas yoga therapy, the training in and of itself, it is equivalent to a master's degree. It's 858 hours. It is intense, right? And so that's one of the distinguishing things between yoga and yoga therapy. Also the credentialing. So most yoga teachers are credentialed through Yoga Alliance, whereas with yoga therapists, we are credentialed through the International Association of Yoga Therapists. And one of the things that will be happening in 2025 is that we have to take an exam. Some of us are great, but you have to take an exam. Much like a nurse has to or a doctor has to, you have to sit for a formal exam. So that's the difference between the two, okay? And so that's being put into motion. I serve on that certification committee. So the training, the credentialing, also our approach. So with yoga, it's more so a group dynamic, right? In terms of how we approach care, right? So a lot of times you go into a yoga studio, they're like, how are you feeling or what have you, right? And so the whole class will be centered around that, or the whole session. Now, individual yoga sessions, they can be very client specific, but all of what we do as yoga therapists is very client specific. We look at what is actually going on. Usually it's a physical condition or something that's going on to where we look at that, but we go beyond that and we use the tools of movement, or what we call asana, breath work, meditation, and people say yoga philosophy. I like to say sacred teachings because I just don't build upon that, right? In terms of that. And then finally, one of the exciting things about yoga therapy is that we are considered part of integrative medicine. So we work with our partners, whether it be a mental health professional, a social worker, even a doctor, in terms of being able to address some of the ailments. Now, we do have a specific scope of work. We don't try to deviate out of that, but we do work in conjunction with that. And even now, with the National Institutes of Health or what have you, we are now part of our organization as part of the coalition of whole health persons, looking at the whole health of a person as it relates to that. So those are some of the differences between yoga and yoga therapy.
How does one decide or recognize that they should look into yoga therapy?
So I'll tell you what made the difference for me, right? I love yoga, but I knew that I wanted to really work with Black and brown folk, and really all people, but really Black and brown folk as it relates to the chronic diseases and what it could lend in terms of helping manage or even avoid some of the chronic diseases. And I can personally attest to that, right? And being able to utilize those tools of being able to manage that. And so for me, it was that I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be more of service, and be part of changing the narrative of what healthcare is.
Yes.
What happens when they can't give you a pill? They can't give you a pill. What happens then? And so I knew that I wanted to do something more. I wanted to be part of this is an option. This is an option for you.
I love that. And of course, I got to experience my first yoga therapy session with you back in 2021, or actually, no, early 2022. It was shortly after, right before my birthday, I got COVID really, really bad. Actually, I had COVID pneumonia, and I also was experiencing long haul symptoms as it relates to my breathing, and just different ailments. Intuitively, I'm like, oh, something's going on with my kidneys. And so I was doing my own, holistic techniques to support and heal that. And you were like, no, let's get on a virtual call. And the I'm going to say the ritual you took me through with opening up my diaphragm here through breath, because that was I'm like, my breathing is not 100% back yet. And I had COVID in December. This was February when you and I had our session, the following February. And I could literally feel my diaphragm open up. And from that session, my breath continuously just got better from that session.
Yeah.
So it works.
So
I love the tailored.
Yes, it's very
tailored and customized.
It's very
experience.
tailored. And there's a method to that. So the method is that we do an assessment. We always do an assessment. So if you remember, you and I kind of talked about it. You filled out some paperwork. We kind of went over your health history, things like that. So we did an assessment. And then from there, from the assessment, we develop a protocol. And so based off of the protocol, I'm really understanding you or what have you, what's happening to you internally, what's happening to you externally, really developing that protocol. And we knew that breath work was what was needed, right?
Yes.
As it relates to that. And there's some other things that we interwove then, and then to deliver that, and then the follow-up from there, giving you the tools to be able to do that. Because a yoga therapist is not always going to be there. So I'm happy to hear that. But that's what we do. That is exactly what a yoga therapist does.
Yeah, that was a very, very beautiful experience. Transitioning, another area of this holistic healing is meditation.
Yes.
And you have been a beautiful example in friendship as it relates to making meditation a priority. You also have your ebook, the guide
For
Ground, your Ground meditation ebook. You also have an upcoming workshop, Intro to Meditation.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
So yes, I'm happy to. And thank you for mentioning Introduction to Meditation series. It is a 4-week series. It's going to start in November. And for me, I always thought that meditation was way over here, not accessible. And so the goal is to introduce people to what meditation is and what it can be for them. There's different ways. And so we're going to look at 3 introductory ways of getting introduced to meditation. And I'm excited about it, right? And it's a hybrid offering, whether you want to be in person, because some of us are kind of like Zoom fatigued, versus others that, they do like it, of being able to do that. And we'll talk about all the things of the benefits of meditation, the different postures of meditation. We'll talk about, meditation and trauma and having the support of a therapist as you meditate. And the word meditation, right? We need to demystify that.
I agree.
Right? It's about getting quiet.
Yes.
And that could be very scary. So how do you work through those emotions of getting quiet? Right? So I'm really excited about it. So it starts November 9th, and looking forward to doing that.
And with that offering, you also have downloadable practices, and there's an extension of community support.
Yes.
So to our viewers and our listeners, you'll be able to connect with Danielle and this offering, as well as Rooted Blossoms, in the show notes. So I'll just make sure I say that here. And also, just really quickly, as it relates to demystifying meditation or what have you, for those who have difficulty to sit still and calm their mind, what are like an easy step or practice that one can begin to integrate today to help with welcoming the art of like getting quiet?
So I would say go with the flow, move. Move. So it may not be actually sitting still. Say, for instance, we do something meditative. So we can do meditative to lead us up to a seated practice. So taking a walk, using your hands, just breathe, connecting your breath with moving. This idea. I like to do this practice of taking the heart and just breathing and just feeling the touch.
Yes.
And the breath. Let's just start there. It doesn't have to be a rigid, right? That have to be that way. That makes it so, and no wonder people are turned off by meditation. It could be a walking, meditative way, right? Now we're going to work our way up to being silent, right? Of being able to sit or to lie or what have you. And that's all a part of what does meditation look like for you in terms of getting quiet, of getting still. But I think that, we have to be mindful, those that, we meditate, it doesn't start there. You didn't start there.
Right.
You did not start there.
By any means.
It could be in the car before you even get in. Take that 1 minute and just breathe. You've meditated
and listen,
at that point.
People are doing that. People love when they leave work, that transition from work to home, and they're sitting in their car, like just decompressing.
Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop. That is a form of meditation. So this is one of the beauties. I like looking at the rhythms of people's lives. That's why yoga therapy is so specialized. How do you move through life? Because I bet you work with me, I can say, there you go.
There it is.
Let's amplify that. Let's start. Meet people where they're at. That's where I truly believe. Meet people where they're at. These practices are for all of us. There's no coin on these practices that it's got to be this way. We need to stop that. We really need to stop that. And that's what opens up. And that's what if anything that I want to say, These practices are for all of us. We've been doing it. We just got to remember.
Yes, the remembrance.
We have been doing it for centuries. Yes. Stop letting this framework of capitalism tell us what we need. No, you inherently know. The thing is have we been listening? Have we tuned it out? So now let's come back to ourselves. Let's catch ourselves in order to catch up with ourselves and understand that you are worth your own attention.
Yes. I love that. I love that. And one other area that I want to touch on before we conclude, you are the executive commissioner of the City of Cleveland Public Utility.
I am.
Holding a high leadership position carries a lot of focus and commitment. How do you balance the demands of your corporate public life with your spiritual practice and business?
Ooh. Girl, we have to have more time. Honestly, it's an ebb and flow. It's an ebb and flow. As much as possible, again, it is a practice and we all are practicing. I try to make sure that I adhere to my practices, to my boundaries, but I believe that it's an ebb and flow. I think that I try to show up authentically who I am. Sometimes that is very challenging to be able to be in both worlds, but I try as much as possible to show up authentically who I am. I think that for the most part, I've been able to navigate it as best as I can. I give myself grace and space to be able to do that. But I think for me, at the heart of it, navigating the two is that people like to be seen, heard, and valued, regardless of where they're at, right? And I think that when you operate from that sense, that principle of, there's a Zulu word that's called sebano, right? And this idea of really seeing, hearing, and valuing people. I think that when you operate from that sense, and you operate from the sense of what I call rested leadership, I think that, you just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, right? There's a certain level of excellence that I bring to both, right? So that doesn't go away. There's a certain commitment that I have to making sure that I'm as fair as possible. I'm not perfect. That comes from being grounded, in terms of what I believe, what I know to be true outside of this damage. And then I also understand I'm only there for a season.
Yes.
I'm only there for a season. This is just part of the story. It's not all of the story in terms of leadership or what have you. And I'm there for a reason. I understand that. But it's a day by day. You navigate. You have the support. I have a great support system to be able to hold me accountable, to not only to being in leadership, but being true to myself.
That part.
Being true to myself.
Not compromising your authenticity.
So I
your
have
values.
the support to be able to do that, right? And so I think that that's how I'm able to navigate. It's not always perfect, but we bob and ebb and flow.
Yeah. And you're right. I think we'll definitely need a part 2, because scratching the surface of as it relates to being a leadership, and also, as mentioned, like not compromising your authenticity and values, and also how does one weave those into navigating the duality of both worlds.
Yes.
Well, in closing here, we're going to do a little bit, you know how they have like the rapid fires, but I don't like that. I don't really like that term. I'm changing that to heart highlights. Okay, we're going to do some heart highlights. What are you currently reading right now?
What am I currently reading? Oh, Paradise by Toni Morrison.
Ooh.
Yes, Paradise by Toni Morrison.
What song always puts you in a good mood?
Too Short. Wait a minute, what was the song that we just went?
I know, you know, I'm so bad with. Hold on, Too Short. Oh, we'll come back. We'll come back to that. I know what you. It's. I'm so mad with names.
Come back to that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've dropped several mantras and quotes in this episode, but which one is your favorite that you live by? Favorite mantra or quote?
I am worth my own attention.
Bars. Yes. What has been the best investment you've ever made in yourself?
Ooh, the best investment that I've made for myself was being able to set up the ability to travel, girl.
Yes.
Ooh. Let me tell you, and it doesn't have to be far.
No. One-tank trips.
Oh my gosh.
Road trips.
Yeah, so I packed my little, and even to the park. Like I have this in the back of my truck, right? I have like my blanket and all that other stuff or whatever. Just that has been the best investment. My little, I would
travel
say,
bag.
Yeah, travel bag.
Ready to go. Pack.
Ready to go. And I keep it ready to go.
Yeah.
That was the best. And that's the small thing. And that makes rest accessible. So I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, my dear sister.
Thank you.
I love you. I love you.
Thank you for this. I'm so proud of you. Oh, this is wonderful.
And thank you so much for watching and listening. Until next time, this is the Maven Podcast. I want to take a moment to thank the incredible sponsors who made today's episode of the Maven Podcast possible. Your support not only fuels these conversations, but also helps us spread the wisdom, healing, and inspiration to our growing community. For your commitment to our mission and for believing in the power of transformative dialogue, we couldn't do this without you. So here's a special thanks to Thaddeus Sumbry of Dimitri's Barbershop, Lakeisha Beasley of Relaxation Loft, and Ray of Beauty Apparel and Shapewear, Deshella Woodruff, Realtor and Investor of Cleveland, Ohio, Danielle Graham of Rooted Blossoms, DeAndre Washington of Higher Shelf Tarot, and Zoe Brown and Iris Gonzalez of Island Beats Cleveland. If you're interested in learning more about our sponsors and their amazing work, check out the links in the show notes, and thank you for supporting those who support us.